finally ready to race here in St. Petersburg. So many of these drivers have waited so long to start their engines and get ready to go into the fight here in this inaugural race of 2015. To pit road we go. Here's Dr. Jerry Punch.
In a series that prides itself on innovation and technology, it's important to remember it is still the human element that determines who wins and loses. We've already told you the new aero kits will challenge the drivers, but what about the crew members? These guys that go over the wall and change tires, they're going to be challenged too. Take a look. This rear tire is in a very, very tight box. It's going to come off straight, go on straight. And they say, hit your mark. If you're too far forward or back, you lose valuable time. And for the front tire changer, he's got to be very careful not to catch his air hose on that front winglet. That could shear it off. Create a serious problem. Let's go to Rick DeVries.
Well, if you look up the word dominant in an online dictionary this weekend, what you're going to see is a picture of Team Penske. If anybody thought that adding an extra car to that team was going to cause them to miss a step, well, they're very mistaken. They qualified 1, 2, 3, 4 on this grid. They own the front section of it. Oh, yeah, that new kid, Simon Pagenaud, he qualified second. Might have had the pole, except there was a yellow flag on his final lap. So what does all this mean? Well, for the other teams, it's going to be hard to catch up. And for everybody else, it's going to be a great battle to see who the top Penske driver is going to be. Jan Beekes?
And Rick, when you talk about everybody else, you certainly have to consider Andretti Autosport. You heard Ryan Hunter-Reay say, we just don't have the speed we need right now. So for Marco Andretti, this timing stand, Michael Andretti there as well, they've been taking their car and doing longer runs on used tires. They say, we don't have the speed, we need a great race, we need to stay out of trouble, and that's job number one. Alan?
So we'll watch for the strategy to be played by the Andretti camp today. The cars are on the track. 2 parade and 1 pace laps before the green flag. The green waves after a word from your ABC station. Cars working their way around the course for the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, approaching the first green flag of the 2015 Verizon Indycar Series season. Got some great onboard views to take you through this course today. James Jakes back in the series this year, carrying our media tech on board. Rookie Sage Karam after his spectacular debut at the Brickyard last May as our Firestone on board. James soil camera. Graham Rahal has our Clearflex on board. And Charlie Kimball has the Norvo Nordisk onboard camera. Talked about Marco Andretti. He's got the Mutual of Omaha on board today. Ryan Hunter-Reay is carrying our AutoNation camera. Tony Kanaan with the NTT data on board. Simon Pagenaud now with Team Penske, carrying a Verizon on board, and on pole, the champion of a year ago and the winner of this race a year ago, Will Power, with a Verizon onboard camera. And the field being led around by the Honda two-seater. Enter at shophonda.com for a chance to start a Verizon IndyCar Series race in the Honda two-seat IndyCar, driven by Mario Andretti. Mark Wilson is on board today with Mario. I'd like to be on the track with Mario when the green flag waves. I know you guys want to be driving yourself. I'd rather have Mario driving me.
Well, the question is, would you sit in the back seat with Mario driving? Because
without question.
Without question.
For the two of you.
And if you're looking for Spanish language commentary for today's broadcast, activate your SAP button. It's presented by ESPN Deportes. So 110 laps is the distance today, 1.8 mile circuit, just a little under 200 miles. And there have been 10 previous races here at St. Petersburg, and 5 of them have had cautions on lap 1. So a 50% chance, if you like to explain things in that way, that we're going to see the yellow flag before they finish a lap. And a lot of that chance happens in turn 1.
It's a very tricky corner, and with the braking distances haven't been shortened here, with all this new downforce they have on the car, I think it's going to be even more difficult to pass her than it was in the past.
Well, you can see all the marks on there, and because it's an airport, sometimes people get it wrong. This is the escape road that drivers can come down and get their cars turned around and rejoin into the race. But you obviously don't want to end up there, but I assure you, throughout the day here, we'll probably see somebody down there at some point in time.
Here they come. Will Power, the black and white number 1, to driver's right, leading the field to the first green flag of the season. We're underway in St. Pete. That's Hunter-Reay that overshoots.
Make it through. A lot of guys trying to take advantage of the start of a race when everybody's packed up to try to get past the car in front.
Car, and now double wide behind. Now, when they come back around to this front stretch, there was contact on the initial start. One of those little winglets we showed you looked to me like off one of the Chevrolet cars, wound up bouncing around the track somewhere. Be curious to see if we can track down. You see one of the cars might have just hit it right there. Be curious to see who it might have come off of. And there's another piece at the exit of turn number 9. That might look like one of those rear wing or side flaps that are on one of the cars.
On that part of the track, Scott, they were 3 abreast. To put it in perspective, we're running downtown St. Petersburg. There really isn't that much room. There's a lot of souvenirs that we're creating for the spectators.
And there's the piece that looks to be on the front stretch right there. But it's interesting to me that everybody is starting to really get excited here because you've been out of a car for so long. And that looks like it's definitely one of the Chevrolet pieces that attaches to the outside of the wing.
Yeah, that's the piece that Alan was talking about. I talked to one of the Foyt engineers, and he said that you don't really lose that much with that front piece.
Just watching the cars come through here to see if we can see who some of that might have come off of.
Characteristics of the car. We talked about with many people that this could turn out to be an event where the safety crew, that you can see them right there, the Home Ultra crew, having to pick up a lot of pieces of debris from the cars if they actually start to do some bumping. We've already seen that, Eddie.
And the problem we have here is that these pieces came very late and they don't have that many spares. So he has one more spare, I believe, to go on. If it happens again, he's got to go back to he'll have to go back to the old bodywork.
So that lap 1 caution trend
is intact.
Make that 6 out of 11 in this race. And there again, that's one of those uprights from the front wing of one of the Chevrolets. And when they first dropped the green flag and they fanned out back in the pack, I saw that come bouncing off one of the cars a bit and clipped somebody else. There's Hawksworth in for some damage. Rick?
Yeah, Jack Hawksworth bringing it in. Very frustrating weekend for these guys. On Friday, Hawksworth was very fast, felt very good about it. Yesterday, they struggled. So as a result, they were having to make some big changes. Felt pretty good. Remember, the teammate is Takuma Sato, who is the top qualifying Honda. Now you see him having to change that wing, missing that left front section. They actually had to run down to Sato's pit to get that wing. Now they're piecing it back on. It doesn't take a lot of time when you think about the fact you're changing the front section of the bodywork, but it seems like an eternity when you're stuck here in the pits. Think about this. One of those new front wings costs between $18,000 and $20,000.
So, description of lap 1, expensive. Not as expensive as some we've seen here in the past at St.
We've seen cars go upside down.
But expensive for some teams. So an early yellow for contact and debris scattered in 3 different places on the track. And the pace car is leading the early laps of this one. Early caution in the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, season opener for the Verizon Indycar Series. Debris in 3 different places on the track after contact between cars on the initial green flag. Quick reminder about some upcoming motorsports on the ESPN ABC family of networks. The SummitRacing.com NHRA Nationals from Las Vegas can be seen in a couple of weeks, qualifying April 11th, 6 Eastern ESPN2, with final eliminations on April 12th at 8 Eastern, also on ESPN2. And for the Verizon IndyCar Series, after a week off next week, race 2 is that much-anticipated debut in New Orleans at the NOLA Motorsports Park, the Indy Grand Prix of Louisiana, April 12th, 3 Eastern. See that brought to you by our friends over at NBC SN. So getting the 1-to-go signal here, and we'll go back racing after an early 4-lap caution. And to say that there were some bits and pieces scattered around on the opening lap would be a fair assessment. Watch.
What happened in the back?
Yeah, matter of fact, the car on the right.
Is that Filippi?
Filippi, I believe. Ends up hitting it. You can see how far this stuff just flies through the air. He really dove down there into turn 1, but there was already some contact because some of the cars in front of him were already hitting some of the debris and knocking it over to the left also.
That's another look at the front of that car. He might be missing both of the front winglets. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so Luca Filippi driving for the newly combined CFH team, missing both of those end plates on the front wings. Jan, got more on that?
Yes, I do. You may remember if you saw the pre-race feature about the aero kits, those little pieces that are missing have the same effect on the front of the car as they do the rear. So the teams believe it won't change the balance. He won't, for Luca Filippi, he won't be quite as fast, but he will not have to come onto pit road and get a wing change, although they're preparing one just in case.
Well, and you saw on the left front part of that wing also, Jan, that it looks like the wing has actually been damaged because it seems to be flapping just a small amount. If it stays like that, not a problem, but it could disintegrate as it continues to run.
Pace cars off. Will Power, Elio Castroneves, Simon Pagenaud, Takuma Sato, and Juan Pablo Montoya, the front 5.
Watch Sato here.
under attack and gives up a spot to Montoya.
So the Penske's are now 1, 2, 3, and 4 again.
Bourdais with a move to the inside of Kanaan. So that puts Sebastian Bourdais up into 6th position.
There's a very fast left-hand kink on the run down to turn 10. Another bumpy section here.
Marco Andretti with a little slide under braking.
It's what we call the most important turn here, guys. If you can get close to the guy that's in front of you, get a good run out of the turn, out of 14, coming down the straight, that's a great opportunity to pass going into turn 1.
The willpower has started pulling away.
You can see how bumpy it is here for the drivers, especially, whoa, some contact right there.
Big move to the inside. That was Stefano Coletti, I believe, trying to make a move.
Just a little bit of contact with the 83 of Charlie Kimball. And Charlie's going to go back after it. Remember, if you just ease up a little bit too soon in the braking zones, the drivers behind you will take advantage of it.
Another driver that's doing quite well is Andretti at this point.
Along with Charlie Kimball, you can see how quickly you get going up through here. And we take a left-hand turn on Van Weldon Way, go through this very fast chicane into turns 13 and 14.
So Penske, the first 4 spots. As you see, some of the field come cycling through. Back to Hawksworth after the wing change, and Hawksworth all the way back in 21st place. Of course, Hawksworth really made a splash in this series a year ago. This race, driving for Brian Herta Autosport at that time, made a spectacular drive, had a chance for a great finish, then had some things go wrong toward the end of the race, but has taken that rookie promise now into an opportunity with A.J. Foyt Racing to expand to a second car.
And he needs results. There's not that much pressure on him. There's a lot less pressure on him than there is on Sato, but he needs to start racking up those points.
And they're looking at him as a guy for down the road because he's so young, has the opportunity to learn here when you've got an experienced driver on the team like Takuma Sato. So all the drivers will retire at some point in time. You want to work on your younger drivers as soon as you can to get them into the system. Rick DeBrule?
Well, you have to understand that Jack Hawksworth really knows this track well. He won here twice in Pro Mazda. He won here once in Indy Light. If there's a track that a driver has to make up time on, this is where Jack Hawksworth wants to do it. Now, I mentioned the fact that on Friday he was relatively quick and had a horrible Saturday. Originally, they thought something was broken. They ended up managing to dial everything back to where they thought it was supposed to be, similar to a Sato setup, and they were sending him back out with much higher hopes today, but obviously you can see how he's been set back.
So Jack Hawksworth running in 21st place, part of a group there, a trio that includes a couple of new guys in new places. Just in front of him is Gabby Chavez in the 98, the 21-year-old, formerly of Columbia, now living in Indianapolis. He has replaced Hawksworth with the Brian Herta Autosport team. And in front of Chavez is James Jakes in the 7, Sam Schmidt Racing. He has come back to the series after a year away, Jakes has, and filled the seat vacated by Michaela Loshin, who has gone back to race overseas.
And we talked about this before. Very talented driver when he ran with Ray Hall, and he was out there qualifying well, finishing well. But when you take a year off, Eddie, and you understand this all the time, it's tough to come back and expect to be right back on pace. It's going to take him a few races into the season before he can expect to have himself back up there.
But when you're in that position, the most important thing you can do is finish every lap that you are on. It's as long as you get miles, you'll be better off the next time you get in the car. But the worst thing you can do is to get caught up in an accident. And Power continues to extend his lead over Castroneves. It's now 2.7 seconds.
Good little dogfight here. Scott Dixon in the 9 trying to hold off Graham Rahal in the 15. This is for 10th and 11th. Rahal was quite quick in the morning warm-up at noontime today. We'll still call it the morning warm-up, won't we? You won't chastise me for that. But Rahal was running the red tires. New to IndyCar racing, the 2 tire combinations. The black sidewall tires are what they call the primary tire, and the red sidewall tire, the alternate tire, a little bit softer in compound. They'll be faster for a while, but they'll give up more quickly.
They're supposed to give up on that last third of your full tank run, but let's remember that Rahal won this race, so if he can get a car under him that is consistent, he should be able to work his way up to the front.
They're running right behind Marco Andretti in that yellow 27. So that for 9th, 10th, and 11th. Up front, Will Power won this race a year ago, went on to win the series championship for the first time. Won pole on qualifying yesterday afternoon, and he has led every lap so far, but we're still very early in the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, season opener for the Verizon IndyCar Series. Downtown St. Petersburg, Florida. Will Power is the race leader. Team Penske cars, 4 entries in the race. They're running 1, 2, 3, and 4. You look at the running order coming across the top of your screen. You're watching the race from 9th on back. Marco Andretti, yellow 27. Scott Dixon, red 9. Graham Rahal, orange 15. 9, 10, and 11.
You know, this is a group of cars that know they don't have the speed to be able to compete with the Penske cars, so I think what they're doing right now is they've turned back their fuel mixture. They're running a little bit lean, as we call it, trying to get some better fuel mileage and just put down some laps, and hopefully the race turns in their favor, because the lap times that they're running right now just a little slower than what we're seeing running up front. So, you know, maybe that's their plan.
I don't know about Rahal. He looks like he's very busy and he's trying to get ahead of Dixon. I think Dixon would like very much to shake him off, but it doesn't look like Marco Andretti is slowing Dixon down. So they're it's a strange battle here. I would almost give Rahal the advantage out of these 2 cars that are ahead of him, which is good to see. I love to see him do well here.
Check out our Honda telemetry on Graham Rahal's car. Watch the miles per hour. Remember, these are city streets they're on right here. And watch on this next run up the Oceanside Street, Bayshore Avenue, how fast they go on a city street.
And there's no margin for error. Look how it goes down from 152 to 60, 59.
Up along the marina, onto the runway at Albert Whitted Airport.
So important to exit that corner.
Say the same thing. You got to time it right and get that run going down the straight if you want a shot at getting into a draft and passing the car in front of you. Now we have to push the pass where you have the opportunity to push the button on your steering wheel and get an extra boost of power. That these drivers have 10 applications and it lasts for 15 seconds. Too early in the race to use it right now. As we see Dixon just putting his nose in there, just letting Marco know that he's back there.
Oh, Marco knows.
Into the parking lot of Al Lang Stadium, spring training home for baseball teams for many years, no longer used for that. Now onto Central and back onto Bayshore.
He's gaining a lot of time turning into these slower corners.
Carlos Huertas has come down pit road. Last year, the first pit stops in this race happened on lap 14. It's when the pit window opened. Now, we had the early full course yellow, but we are beginning to be in the window where we can see the first of the fuel strategies played out.
Another guy that's starting to join this group right now is Stefano Coletti. And you can see that he's now just starting to come up behind Grant Rahal. The driver that's now running 12th, started 17th. Very interesting. When I first met him at the Barber test, that was over in Birmingham, Alabama, all the drivers had an opportunity to do some testing on their equipment before we came to the first race here. Been running in Europe, had only been to the United States just a couple of times when he was running in Formula BMW. He's been running in Europe and winning over there. 25 years of age, will be 26 next month. But he's moved over to Indianapolis, doesn't know anybody, but it shows his commitment to motor racing. He's going to move here, get to know the team, and you know something, he's doing a very, very good job.
They must have something in their family that's genetically aimed at speed. His sister is an Olympic downhill skier. And both does. Just imagine that. Both of them doing something like one racing, the other one is skiing.
I saw that.
Coletti from Monaco, driving for the KVRT team. 8 wins in 90 races in the last 4 years in the GP2 series. So an accomplished driver over there, and now taking his crack at the Verizon Indycar series.
For those that don't know it, the GP2 series is the feeder series into Formula One.
Update on the 4 from Rick.
Talk about the fact that his strategy has changed because he's doing well in this race. They were originally going to have him come in about lap 14 for an early pit stop, but as a result, they decided to leave him out there because he's doing so well. Doc?
Hinchcliffe in for a pit stop, front wing change, air pressure change. They went from the primary to the red tires. Hinchcliffe's got his hands full, car sliding, concerned about some rear tire wear because of the sliding of the car. The first of the contender cars to make a stop.
Beginning to see some other teams starting to lay out the tires on the pit lane. Looks like we'll see Sebastian Bourdais in momentarily in the 11. Bourdais running 6th at the moment. Mentioned the tires. I described the tires earlier as a refresher. First race of the new season. Just the button on that rule is you have to run each of the compounds a minimum of 2 laps in the race. So you can run the reds all race, but for one stint, at least for 2 laps, you have to put the primary tires on. See more crews laying out the tires here.
So if you consider the fact that Coletti is not on reds, he's doing very well.
Here's Ryan Hunter-Reay in. Doc?
Ryan Hunter-Reay, the defending Indy 500 winner. Boy, what a handful this car's been all weekend. Andretti, he told me this morning, he said, we are not where we need to be. We have some serious handling issues, and they made a ride height change this morning, helped a little bit. Now in 4 tire change, he goes to the primary, the black tires, on his first stop.
And it was Carlos Munoz who was in behind Hunter-Reay. That was Munoz's crew in the pit lane, not Bourdais, as I said a minute ago. Apologize for that.
That's one of the most difficult moments you can have when you're leaving the track on that in corners 2 and 3 with cold tires, Scott.
Oh, we've seen some past champions, Indy 500 winners come out of there and pancake the wall, as we call it, with a very embarrassing moment. But you're absolutely right. Trying to tame the 700 horsepower that's in these cars.
And until those tires get the right temperature, they don't have any grip.
Don't know about you, but I'm really happy to see that Team Penske and Will Power and their sponsors and so on carry on that open wheel tradition of using number 1 for the series champion. To Jan.
Luca Filippi is making his stop, and again, they will assess that front wing to see if they want to go for it. Very unlikely they would do that under green. See, they crank some more in. They've lost some flaps, so you can add some with the adjuster. So Luca Filippi trying to make the best of a little less front downforce.
Remember, he was involved in that front straightaway at the green flag contact that knocked some of those bits and pieces off the front wing of the 20 car. Still the best fight for position on the racetrack. Marco Andretti separated a little bit, but from Scott Dixon in 10th on back, they're packed up there.
Well, Marco's trying just to get a little bit of a run because he knows that pit stops are coming up, so if he can get just a bit of an advantage.
He's in the pits.
And here he comes right now. He wants to be just ahead of those guys before he gets in.
Andretti carrying number 27 this year instead of 25.
No wing, 4 tires, full set of fuel, tires, brand new.
And when they talk about brand new tires, they always tell the drivers that, because when you're on sticker tires and you leave the pits, the car has a much different characteristic. So no changes other than those sticker tires. Marco Andretti did long runs today. That's 7.8 for his pit stop. He said, we are focusing on long runs on those primary blacks. This is where he needs it to pay.
Oh, and you see the competitors coming out just in front of him when he was going down pit lane, ready to exit. If you noticed a blue flashing light that was the left-hand side, that's to alert drivers that somebody's coming out of turn 1, and they may meet up with each other when he gets back onto the race surface. So a good indication for him, and he probably knew just to keep an eye to the left, make sure you don't end up running into someone.
Now we'll see if Dixon can pull away a little bit from Rahal, but I don't think he'll be able to. It looks like Rahal has got a good car underneath him today.
A lot of changes on Graham's team since last year. Bobby said he had to get in there. His father, Bobby Rahal, who is the team owner, as you see Graham Rahal closing up to Scott Dixon under braking. They said they need to go in there and give him a package that he could go out and be competitive with. Graham's worked hard in the off-season throughout this winter training. And some new engineering and some new blood in there, and maybe a renewed focus for Graham Rahal, which is something that he probably needed, because when your season's not going well, Eddie, and you understand this, you sort of get behind the 8 ball just a little bit, and you lose that desire to drive at 110%. A lot of people thought that maybe Graham had that in him last year, but now results have to be there. They need to get back up front and get that Rahal lane back into winter circuit.
He is brilliant under braking and turning into the corners. He's gaining so much time on Dixon. Dixon might be in a fuel save mode, but just watch him under braking, how much he gains.
And that's how Dixon saves fuel also. You remember, he's the one that they always say makes fuel. He drives a race car and his fuel numbers are better than anybody else, can generally get another lap over the other competitors, is because he goes in, he eases off the gas just a little sooner, but he rolls his speed through the center of the turn. Now, he knows that with Graham Rahal closing up in the center of the turn, what they call the apex, that Graham's not going to be able to pass him. So it's a brilliant move by Dixon, knowing he has the opportunity just to keep him behind there.
That's a
Contact, Munoz 26.
And more souvenirs.
Yeah, and Simona Di Silvestro, who's actually with the Andretti Autosport team. Oh, there you go.
Now, Simona had just come off the pit lane. Remember, you talked about how tricky those tires can be when you just come off the pit lane?
Yeah, you know, and that's something you just want to wait until Simona's going down the next stretch to have an opportunity, you know, and that's between 3 team cars that were right there.
So Munoz back on the pit lane to address the damage.
That was uncalled for.
Also on the pit lane, the race leader, Will Power's in. Castroneves is also in. Leader's pit stop. Doc?
Will Power, no complaints whatsoever. Said he's going to actually cut back on fuel to save fuel. And they're going to put 4 tires on Blackwell. Helio Castroneves, on the other hand, so the car's gotten very, very loose. They were going to make an adjustment. He is also going to the primary black tires and filled it up with fuel.
That was a good move by the pit crew with Juan Pablo, and making sure he didn't drive out of his pit box. Doc?
Here's Scott Dixon. You guys were exactly right. He was in a fuel-conserving mode, but also the car's been very neutral, in fact, a little bit loose, so he's had an oversteer, not been able to get the power down. So now they've come in to make a pit stop, and
something's wrong.
They've got an issue with the left rear tire, trying to be able to get the tire off the car. So a serious issue here under yellow for the 9 car of Scott Dixon.
Well, that's going to cost him a lot of ground, and we'll see how much after the pit stop cycle out. Here's Sebastian Bourdais. Jan?
The reason that the leaders are taking this opportunity to pit is there was a call that went down up and down pit road, possible caution. That's why they dove in. They don't need necessarily all the fuel now or tires, but you have to protect yourself in case they go to a full course caution because they close the pits. Charlie Kimball also getting service and making sure he doesn't get caught out by a caution.
So Simon Pagenaud is now the race leader, not having made a pit stop yet. Then Joseph Newgarden is second. And then Will Power now running third after almost everyone has cycled on and off the pit lane.
Maybe Pagenaud at this point is on a different fuel strategy. If he doesn't come in soon. He's in the pit. No. Yes.
There's the pit road speed begin line. And Pagenaud has the first pit stall. Rick?
The original plan was to bring Simon Pagenaud in on lap 27. Obviously, as a result of this, they've decided to bring him in just a couple laps early. The one advantage, because it's a new team, he is at the very beginning of pit lane, so it's a nice, easy in, and with no one in front of him, a nice, easy out.
So the pit stop cycle is complete, and Will Power has opened up some ground on second place. A lot of action between the walls on the streets of St. Petersburg. We're back after this from your ABC station. Back live, the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg has just gone under the yellow flag for the second time, and it's for the same reason as the first. Debris, contact between cars, scattering bits and pieces of wing and bodywork at various points around the course.
Any of that will give you a puncture.
Right through the tires. Remember, these tires are slick tires they use in the racing cars. There's another piece right there coming out of turns 14 going on the main stretch. The other stuff that we saw was from the collision between Carlos Munoz and his teammate Simona Di Silvestro, and I'm sure they'll have a conversation in the trailer a little bit later on because of that. Now, when you're out there racing and you come up to these pieces at speed, it's just a quick avoidance because you don't want to run over it, as you mentioned, Eddie, because you have the slick tires. It's not like our tires in our road car that have a little bit of groove and a little bit of depth there. If you run over something here, it'll puncture the tire very quickly.
What I don't understand is why do they wait so many laps to call the yellow?
You can see all the damage on the front wing, Carlos Munoz car, and let's check in with Jan.
And I can answer Eddie's question, of course, speculating, and that is that if there are some pieces of debris on the racetrack and some people make it into pit road and they stop, the stewards will look very carefully about going full course yellow. It closes the pits and puts everybody else completely off of sequence. You could see through those replays, more and more pieces of cars were coming off. They waited as long as they could to give every person an opportunity to pit, then close the pit, because if it ever goes full course caution and you're closed and you haven't pit, you go straight to the back.
Thank you.
So yellow flag number 2 for debris on the race course. It's opening day for the Verizon Indycar Series, and shortly it'll be opening day for Major League Baseball. And Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Scott's, has the defending National League Central champion Cardinals and their old rivals, the Cubs, from Wrigley. Major League Baseball, St. Louis, Chicago, next Sunday at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on ESPN2. Of course, the top of the screen, the place where the Tampa Bay Rays will play their home games starting in just a couple of weeks. And I have no doubt we'll have plenty of the Rays on our ESPN Major League Baseball coverage throughout the season. So Scott Dixon, we saw him having troubles on the pit stop. He came back out on the racetrack in 22nd place out of 24 cars, 52 seconds behind the leaders. And then the yellow came.
Do we want to try and fix something or whatever's wrong with the car? Talking about it now, Scott. Pits will be closed. We'll get a plan here. Yeah, but the only penalty is to go to the back, which we're already at. Copy that. We're working on a plan here.
Scott wants some work done on the car to improve the handling of the car, to get some more speed out of it. And his point was, we can come in there and do this because we're at the back already.
And more on the Dixon situation from Doc.
Well, the problem originally, Alan, was an air jack failure in the back of the car. That's what left them on pit road all this long. They had to actually get a manual jack and manually jack up the car to get the left and right rear tires off. And, of course, right now there's no way. They don't think they can fix the air jack. They may have to manually jack the car the rest of the race for the next 2 stops. That's one of the problems. Scott's also saying that the brakes may be going away. And the car has had a significant oversteer. He's been saving fuel, and the car would not be able to get the power down because it was spinning up off the corner. So a multitude of problems here early on for Scott Dixon. The only good news, the yellow now will give them a chance to come down pit road and take a look at it.
You won't have that much time, Scott, will he? I mean, you can't fix all of that in the race.
Well, you know, and I get to think about conversations with Scott before. He said, you know, this is just not a track that's ever been very kind to me, and he's never won here. Finished second, I think, 3 times, if I can recall. But, yeah, not one of your favorite tracks when you have difficulties coming to a facility like this all the time.
One of the things that Dixon told us when we sat down with him here on the other day was that he felt like they needed to get off to a fast start. That's been one of the weaknesses in their championship bids recently, was a slow start to the season. And so far today, this is not the way that they had hoped for this first race of the year to go.
He's in the pits, and they've shuffled a lot of their engineering around inside of the team too, so he's off to a
have an open
start.
pit down here. We'll stop right down there on the board. Flares out. Guys are ready. Okay, right on the board for us.
Jack is still not working.
So you see they're going to take out the manual jacks for both the back and front of the car.
If we fast forward now, Alan, the first time they have a green stop there, you will lose 10 seconds doing it this way.
Just see what they can see to try and free up maybe a piece of debris. Clobbered that the built-in jack at the back of the car. They'll certainly try and diagnose.
Hold on.
So there's not as much urgency because we're under yellow right now, so they get a chance to take their time, maybe see if there's something that they can repair there for the next time, as you mentioned.
So Scott Dixon, former series champion, in trouble in the season opener for 2015. Caution out in the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Still working to clean up a lot of the bits and pieces that were dropped on the course in the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg after contact between cars. Second full course yellow of the race, the other also for debris that happened after some contact between cars on lap 1. Reminder, the SummitRacing.com NHRA Nationals from Las Vegas can be seen on ESPN2 in a couple of weeks. April 11th, we'll have qualifying runs for you at 6 Eastern time, and then the final eliminations on April 12th at 8 Eastern, also on ESPN2. And for the Verizon IndyCar Series, next race is at NOLA Motorsports Park, the first Indy Grand Prix of Louisiana, April 12th, 3 Eastern on NBC SN from the Big Easy. As you saw in our side-by-side coverage, they were pushing Carlos Huertas' car back toward the garage area. Rick?
Yeah, Carlos Huertas, one of the winners from last year in Houston. This year already out of the race. What put the car out?
I think something on the steering column, because I couldn't turn properly to the right, so it was getting really difficult to turn to the right. I put a lot of lock on in the car, and it would turn like half of what I wanted, so yeah, that was it.
What was it like out there for those opening laps? I mean, a new season, were people respecting body work, or was it just like a regular start and no one cared?
Well, like normal. I don't think there's big difference. Obviously, if you touch a little bit, big pieces come out, but very similar.
All right, once again, Carlos Huertas unfortunately out of the race today. Alan?
All right, Rick, thanks. So the 1-to-go signal being shown to the field here. Scott Dixon pitted a second time, and he will be at the tail of the field. And you look at the front of the grid, and Will Power has led every lap, picking up right where he left off when he claimed that #1 by winning the series championship at the end of last August.
Not only has he led every lap, but he's always managed to put a gap between himself and his teammate Castroneves. So he has been on a roll ever since he's been here.
6th straight season. Powers led laps in the opening race. Of course, Simon Pagenaud did lead a couple on an exchange of pit stop, but other than that, it's been all Will Power. There is Helio Castroneves running second in the 3. Getting a little warm up on the tires for this restart.
And Foyt's car is running third with Hawksworth.
Now, Jack Hawksworth did not pit under this yellow flag when everyone else did. Remember, Hawksworth had the damage to the front wing earlier on the 41 and made a pit stop now 27 laps ago. He'll be in soon. Rick?
Interesting, they were good. They had tires out there. They were ready and set up, but they decided they wanted to leave them out a little bit longer. The one interesting thing that Hawksworth has been saying on the radio is he doesn't think the red tires do as well as the black tires. He's saying he thinks he's giving away with the red tires. He wants to get back to the blacks as soon as possible.
So Hawksworth running third. Pagenaud is fourth. Montoya fifth. Then Bourdais, Sato, Kanaan, Newgarden, and Kimball the top 10. And here they come toward the final corner and the restart. Let's watch.
Montoya passes 2 cars and holds on to it. One of them was his teammate.
I think that was definitely use of the push to pass, the button on the steering wheel to give you a little bit of extra horsepower. He took advantage of it because everybody's all clustered together. Here comes Tony Kanaan rifling up the inside, doing a very nice job, as you would expect him to do, because he's the master of that on restarts.
He is definitely the first lap king.
Boys, this track is not wide enough to go around 2 abreast in some of these turns.
And they're still doing it.
Joseph Newgarden in the 67 car. Graham Rahal still pushing hard. Right behind the 11 of Sebastian Bourdais. And see the back end kick out there.
Oh, contact back there. More bits and pieces flying.
These are bigger pieces than before.
For debris. That's Marco Andretti's car, I believe, that those pieces came from.
That looks like it's from the back.
Back off in front of me.
No, that's the front wing.
Yep.
He's wagging the tail. His foot was on the gas. And he was trying to get around
No, he hasn't done it yet.
Like he was trying to get around Chavez and he just maybe misjudged the space, or Chavez lifted off and he clipped it. Watch the car on his left here. That's Andretti just in front.
Yeah, he clipped him on the way past.
Mistiming on Marco Andretti's part.
So third yellow flag of the race, and that are some of those 200 parts and pieces in the Honda Aero kit scattered in a way that they're not intended to be.
They seem to be more delicate than last year's, but boy.
That is a Honda-powered car, and they have talked about that. There's so many winglets on these Honda cars that putting a lot of pressure on the main plane of the wing, big large piece that goes from one side of the car to the other. So I'm just wondering if those pieces themselves are just flexing a fair amount and being a little bit more brittle.
It's not a NASCAR. You're not supposed to hit people with it. So you cannot build a wing that allows you to run into the back of somebody.
Let's check with Jan.
They're preparing a front wing for Marco Andretti if the pit's open, if in fact he needs that. I can tell you, when you say about they don't seem as strong as in the past, and yes, when you see that damage, when the pits do open, he will definitely need a front wing. Remember, when you make all these new pieces and these new flaps, they need to add up to be the same weight as the original Dallara piece. So more flaps, but same weight means they have to be lighter. So they do use very high-tech materials to build all these pieces, but by design, because you don't want to add weight to the car, they probably will not be as strong.
Good to have Jan, former driver and veteran broadcaster, with us on our ABC IndyCar telecasts for this season. So Marco Andretti having a decent run despite struggling throughout the weekend. Now running back in 13th and probably going to give up some spots, and it's been an expensive day for some of the Honda teams.
There's a new chart for us.
Yeah.
The wing destruction. Honda 3, Chevy 0.
Every now and then we keep track of different things that are unexpected.
As we mentioned, the wings are $18,000 to $20,000 for the complete wing up front, so obviously costing a little bit of money to these teams here today.
So third full course yellow of the race here at St. Petersburg. And again, most of the leaders were just on pit road, not all that many green flag laps to go. So the real question becomes, when do we see Jack Hawksworth give up fifth spot to pit, and Marco Andretti and any of the others that took some damage in that last contact, do we see them give up some in for repairs? Andretti's team is out in the pit lane, so expect to see him in just a moment. Look at the crowd here.
Full house.
Great event, beautiful day. Community really out in support of this event. Big effort by local businesses to be involved. Also, the checkered flag pennants and banners hanging everywhere in the shops and restaurants. And of course, with all respect to those of you, like some of my friends in New England, who reported to me by phone this morning that you got 2 inches of snow overnight. It's a beautiful 70 degrees here in St. Petersburg, Florida today.
And Eddie, you drove Formula One cars, ran at Monaco. You said the other day that this was a little bit like the Monaco setting. So
this is Florida's version of Monte Carlo.
Rick?
Jack Hawksworth brings the car in. They're going to do a half turn of front wing. Important to point out, they change it differently. See how he reaches up? They change it slightly differently. It's a smaller little setup than they used to have. They make the change, and he's gone. Jan?
Marco Andretti is now going to get his opportunity to get the front nose changed. Under caution, as we've talked about before, you don't have to be frantic. You just need to work your way through, not make any mistakes. He knows he's going to drop to the back of the order. Be sure that it's all seated properly. Now remember, his teammates, Carlos Munoz as an example, has also lost a nose front wing assembly. This team, if they have any more contact, will be running out of spares.
Definitely something to be watching as we run through what is still the majority of the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. 35 complete, 75 to go. you saw during our side-by-side coverage, Takuma Sato had to come in and give up 5th place to get a wing change. Damage to the front of that 14 car. He's back in 20th place as we come around to get the green flag again. Will Power, the race leader. Castroneves second. Montoya really brave on that last restart. The red and white car in 3rd with Pagenaud 4th, and now Tony Kanaan in 5th. We'll see who makes the moves into turn 1 here.
Green.
Penske, 1, 2, 3, 4. Toya's looking very strong. If he gets his confidence up, he's a car to watch, and a car not the one that you do not want having behind you.
Remember a year ago, Juan Pablo Montoya, in the words of his team owner Roger Penske, was a frustrated duck trying to figure out the cars and the way that they've changed since he last drove open-wheel cars. But after finishing last season with 3 straight top 5 finishes, Roger says Juan Pablo has entered this season full of confidence, and he's going to be hard to handle.
This is not the same Montoya we saw last year. He has every intention of getting past Helio Castroneves.
More on Montoya from Doc.
Before climbing in the car, Juan told me, I remember this race a year ago. I was the new kid on the block, the new driver for Penske. I played it conservative. The learning curve was steep. I'm not being conservative today. I'm here to win this race. He said the streets of Monaco were tight. This is an airport compared to that. I wanted Monaco, and I can win here today. A moment ago on the radio, he said, I'm good, the car's good, and I'm headed that way.
All right, Doc, thanks. James Hinchcliffe in the 5. Has some troubles. And there are more bits and pieces on the racetrack.
Spoke with James this morning, and he's got a right rear flat, as you can see right there. Wondering if he actually ran over something, or maybe gave him the flat, or maybe touched the wall. Let's see.
Chavez.
There we go. Just enough to get to the sidewall of that right rear tire and deflate it. Looking on board now from Ryan Hunter-Reay's car. See everything happening up in front.
All those little pieces flying around, it just takes one little needle of that to puncture a tire.
And for Hinch, you got to feel bad because that contact happened in the last corner, and then he's just past the pit lane entry, and he's got to limp all the way around the racetrack after the tire goes down.
And I talked to him this morning, and he said, you know something, we're off just a little bit. We're going to make some big changes for a warm-up. Hopefully we get a race car that works better. And maybe didn't improve the car all that much, but unfortunately,
no balance adjustment.
Also obviously has a flat tire and losing a lot of time on the track.
And there's still a lot of debris on the track, and there's no yellow.
See the wing damage on Gabby Chavez in that 98 car.
Now he's not getting through the turns as quick as he can. I'm sure that Scott Dixon has been alerted that his car is wounded, because when the front wing, you can see debris coming off now that they're running over, when the front wing is broken like that on Gabby's car, what ends up happening is the car is not going to turn as well and not as much front grip, and smartly comes into pits to change the front wing.
And Andretti tries to pass Dixon on the outside.
Okay, let's hit your mark.
Which one to look at? A couple of them side by side here into turn 1. That is Coletti 4 passing James Jakes in the 7. And then behind them, trying to fight his way back up through some of the traffic, Jack Hawksworth, Marco Andretti, and Scott Dixon. Remember, all three have had their troubles at various points in this race that sent them to the back of the field.
I would keep my eye on Marco Andretti because he was running well before he had that problem, and he is really good at traffic.
And he's probably really bad right now, too.
And that extra bonus for us is that he's probably very angry right now.
Simona Di Silvestro passing Sage Karam. So Di Silvestro back in 18th place, Karam in 19th. And Carlos Munoz with a look inside, but not able to stay inside of James Jakes. Jakes in the 7. Munoz in the green and white car, and Scott Dixon right behind them in his familiar red colors.
Now, you're diving down the turns right now, and you know, last year you might have been a little bit more aggressive to try to get the car in beside the competitor that's in front of you, but now everybody knows that the front nose is really so crucial. You can't knock the wings off. We've seen that happening here so much today. You can't go in there and maybe do little bumper cars like you did last year, Eddie. So,
and then if you add the fact that you have so much more downforce and you can brake later, there's less braking distance, so there's not that much time for both drivers to adjust their positions as they go in. That's why you see a lot of these noses flying off.
Yeah, and I want to play devil's advocate with you here for a second, my friend, Mr. Goodyear. Respectfully, because you've driven these race cars, but I haven't. But come on, you're not going to tell me a race driver is going to be patient. He sees the possible opportunity to stick the nose in there on someone. He's going for it, right? That's his nature.
Absolutely going to do it, but maybe going around the outside as we're watching here right now might be more the answer instead of risking your front wing. But, you know, I think at this point in the race, you're going to go, okay, maybe I'll try next lap when I have an opportunity to be up beside the car just a little bit more. I agree with you, Alan. In the last 5 laps, that's what it's going to be all about.
We've seen some pretty interesting moves and some pretty interesting contact in this one for sure.
Out of this group of 4 cars, I would say Marco Andretti's the quickest.
Love this look.
You can see how narrow it is here between the walls. And Eddie, you and I have driven on these courses before. Remember, this is not a
Here
race
goes
track.
Dixon. Sorry. Here goes Dixon in a really difficult spot.
Yeah, very difficult.
Sorry, Scott.
But just to add to this, this is city street, so there's a crown in the road to allow the water to drain off on both sides. So every time you go through that back section, turns 8 and 9, you're going up the crown, down the other side of the crown. You got to catch the car before it hits the wall. All that has to happen with you making sure you don't touch the wall.
I think Andretti might tuck in behind. There we go. Boy, that is tight through turn 1. What a great camera angle.
The streets of St. Petersburg. Pretty good racing. A little bit back in the pack while Will Power is doing a lot of leading up front. We're back after this from your ABC station.
Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, brought to you by Honda, an official vehicle of the Verizon Indycar Series.
Beautiful day for a sail on Tampa Bay, and right adjacent to the waters where that beautiful boat's having a cruise. The Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg through the streets of downtown, being led by Will Power. Power's led all but 2 laps of the 46 we've completed in the race. It's a Penske 1, 2, 3, 4, and a car off. Is that James Jakes in the 7?
It is.
Who has been struggling, and people have been working to get around him, and now it looks like there's been some contact between Simona Di Silvestro and James Jakes that has caused damage to Di Silvestro's car and left Jakes by the side of the road.
Here we are right through and going into turns 13 and 14. Looks like Simona just miscalculated her braking zone. Let's look backwards now from James Jakes.
That wasn't even close.
Well, I'm going to say this. James has been sliding back through the pack. Remember, he was the guy that Marco Andretti and Scott Dixon and so on were passing or bottled up behind when we went to the commercial break, the local ABC station break. And so he's obviously having difficulty with his car. And I'll give Simona the benefit of the doubt, and James having difficulty with his car, and Simona that he just got off the gas and on the brakes for that slow corner a lot sooner than she was expecting.
Sounded like that, yeah, because he rolled off of it very quickly and seemed to just coast there for a second. So,
but the speed differential was enormous.
Well, to Alan's point, I think he was really coasting in there. So sad for Simona, because this is one race that she has right now on her docket. She's trying to get another event with Andretti Autosport. Michael is very pleased, very satisfied when she tested with the team earlier this year. Remember, she was doing a great battle here a few years ago.
Here with Kanaan.
With Kanaan, where she finished 4th. Now listen. Yeah, he's still pretty deep in the turn, though, isn't he? I think she's. That's going to be a racing incident, I'm sure, but I think she could have avoided that.
But you're not willing to give as much of the benefit of the doubt as I am.
Well, I think not. Yeah.
No, there was just too big of a difference in speed.
Okay. Well, full course yellow number 4 is out in this race, and the Andretti Autosport team has had a few front wings that they've had to repair today, and that's another one if Di Silvestro is going to be able to keep going on that 25 car. So going to be a difficult one on Michael Andretti's group here in the season opener, where the parts tally is concerned.
From the last restart, Alan, Power has not managed to distance himself from Castroneves and Montoya.
Pit stops here for the race leaders. Rick?
Simon Pagenaud brings the car in, the first of them, because he's so far down. They decide to go with red tires specifically because they think it's going to help him on the restarts. He hasn't had great restarts yet. Hopefully this will do the trick.
Montoya will come in. He's on the black tires. He will stay on the black tires. Felt the car that was the best there. In front of him, his teammates, Helio Castroneves, putting red tires on, no adjustment.
You were saying, I was kind of thinking that they were both kind of playing cat and mouse, Power and Castroneves, with each other where fuel was concerned. How much do I need to use and how much do I need to spend just to keep the guy behind me?
That's a good point, and I don't think we can figure that out in the booth, but he definitely was keeping him at hunting distance.
And Pagenaud got bottled up leaving that first pit stall at the entrance to pit road and cost him a little ground on his stop. Still under caution here in St. Petersburg at the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, season opener for the Verizon IndyCar Series, and Jack Hawksworth is now the leader by not pitting under this yellow flag. Look at our Mother's Race rundown, some of the topics of interest through the first portion of this race. Ryan Hunter-Reay not having the kind of day we might have expected from the Indy 500 winner.
You're just in the wrong place there.
Hunter-Reay running back in 12th place and has not really been a challenger for a top 5 spot at all throughout the course of this event. In fact, he's been back in the middle of the soup much of the day, where there have been a lot of body parts shed on race cars. That would be the second topic of interest in this race rundown. Wings, winglets, wing bits, flickers and flaps, and all the other nicknames they have for them. Scattered, smothered, and covered.
You got it.
To take your favorite Waffle House term.
Sounds like a hamburger.
We've seen a lot of the bits and pieces of the new aero kits, Chevrolet and Honda, on these racetracks, and now James Jake's car being brought back to the pit area on the hook after the crash that caused this 4th yellow flag.
That's such a bad way to start off the season.
Now, there were a lot of close calls on pit road under this last set of stops. I mentioned Simon Pagenaud. They held him to get his car full of fuel, and by the time he left, he got caught up in some traffic. And Graham Rahal also in the middle of that same jam up in traffic on the pit lane.
Whoa. So close, and as a driver for Graham Rahal, you're coming out, you're trying to avoid the car that's in front, and also the crew member. You do not want to hit the crew member, but then you get in the pit lane itself and there's traffic.
That was brilliant reflexes from everybody involved in that, not to crash.
Nice job, guys. I'm going to have to go clean my shorts out, okay?
Yeah, I think he does.
Well, while he's cleaning his shorts, they're still cleaning up the racetrack, and we'll clean up some business. Yellow flag in St. Pete.
win, you'll leave as a legend.
Hunter-Reay almost clips the grass.
He did it. What a gutsy move.
3 to go, 3 to go.
What a pass. Castro-Neva's the leader. Ryan Hunter-Reay to the outside of checkered flag. Ryan Hunter-Reay wins the Indianapolis 500. Less than 60 days away, and can't wait for the 99th running of the greatest spectacle in racing. And the Verizon IndyCar Series kicking off its season. Our ABC coverage beginning the build-up to the 500 with the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg today from here in sunny Florida. Wrapping up the fourth caution of the race. Shuffle in the running order. Jack Hawksworth and Sage Karam didn't pit their first